What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another amazing Naruto story. What if Naruto secretly trained for years and returned unstoppable? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. In an old and abandoned part of this forest, around a small wooden house once used for training and weapons storage, a young boy sat down, carrying a large scroll wrapped around his back. He had blonde hair as bright as the sun and deep cerulean blue eyes, as striking as the sky itself. But the most noticeable aspect of the young boy was certainly the three little whiskers on each side of his cheeks, which looked a bit like fox whiskers. Another noticeable trait was the bright orange jumpsuit he wore, which seemed to say, "Kill me now," considering the world that he lived in. Seriously, who the hell could wear that, for Kami's sake? His name is Uzumaki Naruto, known as the most notorious prankster that the almighty village of Konoha has ever seen in its history. Just yesterday, his latest prank was painting the Hokage monument with buckets and buckets of wall paint. How did he get those? No idea. And how did he maneuver Chunin, Junin and even Anbu itself with that hideous and attention-drawing orange jumpsuit? Even less so. Maybe he might have some talent as a shinobi, if his stealth says anything. But his performance at the academy says otherwise. He had just failed the Genin Shiken for the third time in a row this afternoon. His taijutsu was barely passable, his usual grades at written exams were far below average, and his genjutsu was one of, if not the worst seen in ages. He couldn't even make a bunshin to save his life. Even if he did pass, he would have passed as the dobi, the dead last. No one expected anything great coming from him. He was shunned, looked down upon and downright ridiculed for his pranks, grades and goofy attitude. Forever a loser. And yet, he kept his foxy grin in his face. Yet he kept trying, and yet he dreamed and went on about how he was going to become Hokage. Not only that, a Hokage even greater and stronger than all who came before, including the Yondaime. Everyone knew of him, of course they did. Namikaze Minato, the legendary hero responsible for the death of the almighty Kyuubi no Yuko, the strongest and deadliest of all Biju. His feat was one all would remember forever. Except it wasn't entirely true. As a Biju, the Kyuubi is immortal. Even if someone did manage to kill it, in a few years the chakra that was part of its constitution, alongside negative feelings, would simply resurrect it. So the Yondaime had another approach on this. He decided to seal the creature away in a newborn baby. The Hake Fuin no Shiki he performed on the newborn would slowly seep some of the demon's chakra inside the boy's natural coils, granting him unimaginable powers and talent beyond equal to become the strongest Jinchuriki, power of human sacrifice, aka Biju host, in the elemental nations, and the one true hero of Konoha. The one who kept the Kyuubi caged, and saved Konoha every day by just breathing air. The baby that was chosen to endure this task was none other than Uzumaki Naruto himself. He became the Jinchuriki, but all hopes and dreams the Yondaime had on him were buried in the mud by the villagers, who didn't tell the difference between the container and the beast contained within. Their anger, fear and hatred on the Biju made them shun, mistreat and ignore him. Naruto hardly ever heard his own name being spoken. They only called him, that boy, monster, him. His name was not even mentioned. Nor his surname. Out there, somewhere in the ethereal plains, Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina were probably weeping. Their sacrifice was not duly respected, and their son was in deep pain. Yes, there was this particular point. Minato was secretly married to a beautiful red-haired woman, remnant of the legendary Uzumaki clan of Uzushiogakure no Sato, and Naruto was their son. The number of people who knew of this secret could be counted with one hand. In a way, it was better that the other hidden villages did not acknowledge the presence of the son of both the Kiroi Senku and the Akai Chishio no Habanero, otherwise war would be inevitable. On the other hand, if the villagers knew that the Yondaime was so brave to the point that he sacrificed his own son with this burden, people would not look down so much upon him. But what's done is done. Because of his condition, shops overcharged him and gave him all kinds of spoiled and poisoned food. Weapon stores would give him blunt equipment. One of the many fabric stores came up with the idea of giving him that hideous orange jumpsuit, so he could be easier to spot and kill. And finally, the reason why he was in the forest, with that large scroll on his back. The academy instructors completely screwed up his education and learning. There was but one academy instructor who didn't mistreat him. Amino Iruka felt some empathy for the young Jinchuriki. Just like Naruto, he lost his parents to the Kyuubi. For some time he couldn't see the difference between Jinchuriki and Biju, but after a while, watching and observing the boy and receiving advices from Sarutobi Hiruzen, reinstated Sandaime Hokage and surrogate grandfather of the young Jinchuriki, he saw within him a dedicated and clever boy. Sure, his grades were terrible, but his creativity for pranks and his stealth skills were incredible. Seriously, avoiding Anbu Nen's wearing that much orange? The kid deserved a fucking award. But it was the lack of knowledge in the basic academy skills that didn't allow him to hand over a hiteate to his somewhat surrogate Otuto. It was in this moment that Toji Mizuki, one of the many instructors who despised Naruto, decided to make his move and get what he truly wanted. He approached Naruto and told him about a special test within the academy to help out some potential talents who could not go to waste. The test was simple enough. Go to the Hokage's office, grab a huge-ass scroll hidden in one of the drawers, go to the forest to hide for a while and practice one or more jutsus from the large badass scroll. Wait for Mizuki to come, deliver the scroll and bam. You are now a proper, bona fide shinobi of Konohamaru no Sato. Thanks for your time and have a nice day. And that was precisely what Naruto went on to do. Getting the scroll was much easier than he first thought. Yeah, he did get caught red-handed by Hiruzen, but one single Oiroke no Jutsu, Waijutsu, rendered him unconscious from nasal bleeding. Old pervert. Naruto simply looked over a few drawers here and there, and easily enough, he grabbed the scroll and dashed towards the southwest forest borderline to practice the jutsu before delivering it to Mizuki. He was very happy with this new opportunity to achieve his dream. He. Young Naruto cheered, sitting on the side of a tree. Great. With the jutsus of this scroll, Mizuki-sensei will surely pass me and I'll get my own hiteate. And then, oh man, I can't even wait. Just one of the jutsus of this scroll will kick Sasuke Tomi's ass. Sakura-chan will finally go out on a date with me, and then I'll be taking that hat off of Gigi's head in no time. Yosha, let's do this, Datbeo. Naruto. The gutsiest of all tales. Chapter 1 Rise, Uzumaki Naruto, or is it Namikaze? Naruto unlocked the small tag that locked down the scroll and started unwrapping it to read it through. Since Naruto was not too good at reading, he felt the need of saying out loud what he read, to make sure that 1. He didn't make any mistakes while reading. Gee, what a dumbass. And 2. To memorize it faster. So he read aloud the contents of the scroll, which were as followed. Naruto Ost. Kakashi no theme. Warning. The techniques you are about to see are all labeled as kinjutsu, forbidden jutsu. The concept of kinjutsu is fairly simple, as its name suggests. It shall be labeled as such whatever jutsu that meets these two particular characteristics. 1. If the jutsu takes a considerate amount of risk to use it, whether affecting the user, his comrades or even the battlefield in general. Anything that is used as a last resort, but takes too much of its toll is immediately to be considered forbidden to use, unless at the most inevitable situation possible. 2. If this jutsu goes against the laws of nature or moral conducts of men, not only the use of this jutsu will be forbidden, but the user itself may be brought to justice for whatever laws he broke to create or perform it. Honor might be reserved for samurai rather than ninja, but we are still human before anything else. Anyone who dares to disregard life so effortlessly for the sake of power and other petty ambitions will be punished, and hopefully its forbidden arts will be either forgotten, or improved on a more moral basis. If you had particularly memorable experiences using or facing people who used the jutsus, please write them down in the special section built just for that purpose. And remember to honor the will of fire and protect your home and friends every day. Senju Hashirama, Shodai Hokage. Naruto was impressed. Are the jutsus on this scroll really so powerful that no one should learn to use them? Maybe Mizuki mistook it for another scroll, that's the only thing he could think of. Oh well, might as well go on with it and see what the fuss is all about with these jutsus. Let's see. First on the list is Toju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Aw, man, why does it have to be a damn bunshin? I suck at these motherfucking things, Datbeo. Naruto just frowned and scoffed. Why the hell was there a bunshin technique in this scroll? Wasn't it supposed to have only the most badass jutsus known to men? It was in this very moment that something hit him. Wait, it has Kage on the name. Maybe it's some kind of overpowered bunshin that only the Kage could be able to perform it. Sometimes I impress myself with my cleverness. Well, bunshin or not, I'm so mastering this, Datbeo. Now, let's see how this thing works. His trail of thought was a bit far-fetched, but oh well. It was a very neat bunshin nonetheless. But to hell with it, let's just read through the contents. Kage bunshin and Taju Kage bunshin no jutsu. Basic nature. Yuden ninpo. Classification. Ninjutsu, non-elemental bunshin. Recommended rank. Tokubetsu Junin, B rank Kinjutsu. Required hand signs. Tora, tiger. But instead of the usual interlaced fingers, you turn the left hand 90 degrees to the right, clockwise, to make a cross shape with your hands, and channel as much chakra as you can. Creator. Senju Tobarama, with collaborations from Sarutobi Sasuke and Uzumaki Ikamatsu. End Ost. Naruto widened his eyes as he saw this particular point, and for 3 reasons. 1. The name of the creator. The Nidaime Hokage was one of the most powerful shinobi in existence due to his unheard mastery over the Suiden techniques. He never knew he was a creative mind. Well, there you have it. He learned something new about one of the old dudes he wanted to surpass, and it felt nice. The second reason was the first collaborator. If he considered how much time must have been since this jutsu was created, and using basic math skills, he would assume that this Sarutobi Sasuke guy was probably Gigi's father. Who would have known that Sasuke's own name was inspired because of this old guy? Maybe he was really awesome. No, wait, cast those thoughts aside, you're not supposed to praise the Uchiha Teme, damn it. But what really caught his attention was the Uzumaki name. Did that mean that Naruto had a family? And by the looks of it, a pretty badass one? He had to ask Gigi later. One so old as he was sure knew something about the Uzumaki name, he was certain of it. Naruto put these thoughts aside. He decided to keep reading through the scroll. Maybe he would find something else that was interesting while he was at it. Naruto Ost. Taiji, Naruto Shippuden Ost. Ninmu also fits just fine. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu is the improved and final version of the basic Bunshin, and takes it to a whole new level of usability. The first aspect is that, with the Yuden nature, instead of creating distracting illusions, it actually creates physical copies that can fight and think for themselves, allowing the user to create a vast number of strategies with it. Not only that, as long as the Kage Bunshin keeps itself active, once the caster focuses some of his chakra, the clone will restore most of its strength to keep fighting. The clone usually dispels itself after a solid hit, but depending on the amount of chakra put into it, the clone might last longer. Another positive aspect of this jutsu is its ability to return mental memory for the caster once the clone is dispelled. It means that, if the Kage Bunshin is sent on an enemy base to investigate it, once dispelled, the caster will regain the memories of the clone. It also means that the experience gained from mental training of any nature will be returned to the user, meaning that if the user is capable of creating, let's say 9 clones, and they all train for 2 hours, then the caster and its clones will accumulate a total of 20 hours of training, making it the ultimate training tool. That's the part where Naruto got really excited about learning this jutsu. But then again, if you got the chance of using it for training and making yourself train to the bone, you could easily accumulate days, week, maybe even months of training in a short amount of time. That would probably make him have, by the end of a few months, or years, more training experience than all 4 Hokages combined. Another reason to be happy and eager to start practicing this jutsu and kicking their old fat asses. But let's keep reading, because it's not over. There are 2 drawbacks from it, though. The first is the mental backlash provided by the dispelling. If the caster of the jutsu has too many clones dispelled at the same time, the number of information flowing in his head will mostly make him have mental strains, making it a risky technique to use, even for most experienced shinobi. The second drawback is the chakra used for it. Not only the amount of chakra burst to use the technique is high enough, the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu also disperses the user's chakra among its clones. That is why it's able to return experience in the first place. Being composed of the person's own chakra, any kind of mental experience and strain will be returned to the original caster. But it also means that the caster will have part of his chakra reserves heavily affected. Picking the previous example of 9 clones being summoned, That would mean that the original caster has now only 10% of chakra within his system, which would mean certain death from sudden chakra depletion. The second being that with the 20 hours training regiment would also mean 20 hours of mental fatigue drilled in his head in a few seconds, also enough to kill most people from mental breakdown if not properly balanced. Unless you are an Uzumaki, don't try to use the Taiju version. The original idea of the jutsu came from a battle against the Uchiha clan in the Warring States in a castle at what nowadays is the imperial city of Hai no Kuni. Since the Kage Bunshin was formed of the user's chakra, the Sharingan could not easily pick the difference between clone and caster, fooling the enemy with numbers rather than the overall quality of the shinobi. It proved to be effective, and it was one of the main triggers for the victory of the Senju Uzumaki alliance against the Uchiha, which led to the Treaty of Peace that ended up with the founding of Konohamaru no Sato. Wow! Said a flabbergasted Naruto, amazed with everything he read so far. Man, I gotta learn this awesome jutsu right now, dat bayo. Let's see if there's anything more that I should know. End Ost. Special comments section. Tell us about your experience with Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Well, first of all, I gotta hand it to my Otuto. He was clever enough to come up with this technique. He was always the cold and calculating strategist of the bunch. And the Uzumakis, damn, whenever they used the Kage Bunshin it almost seemed like we had a couple extra armies. Gotta love the Uzumaki's amazingly high chakra levels. Can you imagine them having the chakra control of a medic nin? Many memorable moments with this jutsu. Especially with Mito-chan. Having an Uzumaki for a wife is the best thing that ever came to me. I swear to Kami. Senju Hashirama. Shodai Hokage ****. Naruto's sweat dropped when he read that particular line from the Shodai. Who would have thought that the legendary and almighty founder of Konoha was such a pervert? And wait a minute. Once more the Uzumaki name appeared. Wife of the Shodai? Damn, how come he never learned of these things? He had a Kami damn family after all. Gigi owned him some serious explanation after this. Off to the next comment, then. If I had one thing to say about the jutsu created by Tobirama Dono, is that it was our ultimate life savior. Uzu Shiogakure has been looking for a way to implement bunshins in our academy curriculum, but most of our young children already have too much chakra and too little control to perform them. And we can't afford to use disruption seals on children who haven't hit mature chakra coils yet. Having the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu improved everything. It's unfortunate that it cannot be implemented on Konoha due to its dangerous nature, but oh well, they have many strong clans as it is. Uzushio belongs to the Uzumaki clan alone. This great step forward in our educational system will certainly make Uzu Shiogakure become the 6th great village one day. Our eternal debt to Tobirama Dono for this amazing technique. I'm glad to have tagged along. Uzumaki Ikamazu. Shodai Azukage *****. Naruto widened his eyes in surprise with his possible ancestor's statement. Did they really had this jutsu as part of the curriculum? Wow, the children back then must have been fucking awesome. The whole Uzumaki clan must have been awesome. He was probably awesome as well. He wish he could have been taught about these things at the academy. Damned instructors, all of them useless, good for nothing, sons of. Not Iruka, though. Iruka was cool. Oh well, let's just keep reading. Naruto Ost. Fooling mode. When Tobirama-san asked me for help with his new bunshin I thought to myself, are you fucking joking me, Toby? But then he told me about the true conception and nature of the jutsu, and then I realized it truly was a challenge worthy of his caliber. Me, Tobirama-san and Ikamazu-sama were inside the Senju's bathhouse brainstorming, when we reached a stalemate, until I got this great idea of implementing Yuden. After all, despite the fact that it's a chakra-splitting kind of jutsu, it still requires the imagination of creating something purely physical. When Ikamazu-sama tested it out, he had the Uzumaki's huge chakra reserves to avoid dying. After all, guess what? Success. We were so happy with the end result that we ran around the Senju compound shouting, Eureka! Of course, Mito-sama beat us to a bloody pulp because we were running around wrapped in our towels. Damn it, I forgot how strong she was when she was angry. But then again, all the Uzumakis are. Hashirama-sama is so damn lucky to have her as a wife. She certainly knows how to kick some ass when the situation demands it. Anyway, I left the idea of extending the Kage Bunshin to our kunai and shuriken, but Tobirama-san said he would entrust this task to my yet unborn son, whom he promised to adopt as apprentice in that new genin cell formation Hashirama-sama and Madara-sama were talking about. I'm certain Hiruzen will be up to this task. Heck, he might make it to Hokage if he's taking apprenticeship from Tobirama-san. Well, that's all I have to say about this wonderful experience with my good friends. I think I can now join my ancestors with honor in my heart. Sarutobi Sasuke, head of the Sarutobi clan *****. End Ost. Phew, that was long, said a panting Naruto. He really had to learn how to read in silence. Maybe if he learned this jutsu, he would work with that more often. The next two comments were from some guys named Jiraiya and Hitaki Kakashi. Not that it mattered much to our blonde friend, anyway. Okay, last comment. After that, I'll be practicing, Datbeo. He started reading the last comment. Which was probably the one who would turn his whole life upside down. Well, more than he had anyway, being a loudmouth prankster and all. The first time I saw the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu was when I sparred with Kushina a week before our first date. I heard of it, but not even Jiraiya-sensei performed it during training sessions. But then again, he left to fight at the war right after the first few months. I never thought she could be able to create such a large amount of them, even being in Uzumaki. If I knew back then that all my experiences with her would be so amazing and memorable, I should have asked her out earlier. When I became Hokage, Kage Bunshin was my life savior against that cursed paperwork. Once again, I gotta thank Kushina for that. She was complaining about me never having time for her, and I think that it hit her that I should put the clones in service while I take care of her. And now I officially loathe pregnant women. And I swear to Kami, if my son ever, and I mean ever, inherit her databane twitch or something alike, I'm finding Orochimaru, forgiving him for all those awful crimes he committed, and have him be his Junin sensei, commander and senpai. Anyway, if you don't praise the log, at least praise the Kage Bunshin. But if you're a Hokage like me, don't use it for paperwork 24/7, the mental strain will be unbearable. Maybe that's why I ended up impregnating Kushina in the first place. I was too stressed to be worried about birth control. Naruto, if you're somehow reading this, don't repeat your old man's mistakes. And don't pick up your mother's databane twitch, I've had enough as it is. Don't tell your mother that, though, unless you want to know why she is called the Akai Chishio no Habanero. Namikaze Minato. Yondaime Hokage *****. A loud thud echoed through the forest. The scroll slipped off Naruto's hands and fell on the floor. Damn, that thing was heavy to produce that sound. Meanwhile, the young Jinchuriki just stood there, processing what he had just read. Did he really read what he just read? Did the Yondaime motherfucking Hokage just called Naruto his son? He messed around with that monument yesterday. Hell, he kept admiring it for years by now, and neither he, nor anyone in this entire Kami Dam village ever bothered to see the resemblance. It just hit him. He was the son of the Yondaime. The Yondaime. And if this Kushina woman, who apparently was her mother, was scary enough to bring shivers to the Kiroi Senku, then she was also a force to be reckoned with. And once again, she was an Uzumaki, just like the Mito woman, the Azukaji Ikamazu and him. Damn, he was part of a whole family of nobles. Badass nobles, to top it all off. But if that was the case, then, why did he keep failing the academy exams? Why did everyone shunned, despised and wanted him gone, maybe dead? Why couldn't anyone call him by his name, nor his surname? Both of them, by the way. It was only him, that thing, monster. He then did something he haven't done in 5 years. He started crying. He cried for his life. That was as shitty could get. He cried for his performance, which labeled him as a major failure, a denial, a true pariah. Never to be acknowledged, never to be recognized. And he cried for his parents. But unlike the previous times, which he would simply wonder where or who they were, and why did they leave him alone? This time he cried because they were truly gone. He was slightly relieved to know that they died protecting Konoha, at least that was good enough. After a few minutes, Naruto swept away his tears. He had to. He was the son of the Yondaime and a badass Uzumaki. And he'd be damned if he ever looked weak in front of others. Okay then. He though, taking a deep breath. I turn my left fingers clockwise to turn the Taurus seal into a cross, and I focus as much chakra as I can. And I had to think of something truly physical, got it? Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A puff of smoke appeared, and it seeped away to reveal nothing. He focused chakra, but he didn't get quite right the physical aspect. Damn it. Okay, let's try it again. Meanwhile, at the Hokage tower. Naruto asked. Nervous. The boy has gone far enough. Hokage-sama, shouted a random Chunin, with a few shouts of agreement of the others gathered there. A Chunin stepped forward to speak. That scroll has techniques labeled forbidden by you and the other Hokages. If anyone uses whatever is on that scroll, Konoha might be in great danger. Sarutobi Hiruzen, Sandaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato, was thinking about what happened in the last 30 minutes or so. Naruto knocked him down with that perverted Oiroke no Jutsu of his, stole the forbidden scroll and was never seen again since that. Even he knew Naruto was not a petty thief. He must have had a reason to take the scroll away. But before he could try and locate Naruto with his crystal ball, he had to make sure that he was still around Konoha. He must still be around Konoha. He said, I want you to find him and bring him to me. And please, don't harm him. Disperse. Hi! Was the shout in unison of all the Chunin and Junin gathered, who quickly scattered around to find the young Jinchuriki. Among them, there were two in special. The first was Amino Iruka, his instructor and somewhat surrogate Iniki. Jumping across rooftops, his only thought was finding Naruto before anyone else did something bad to him. Damn it, Naruto, where are you? The second person was Toji Mizuki, the one who gave him the idea of stealing the scroll in the first place. He was also thinking of nothing else but finding Naruto. But unlike Iruka, he had no intentions of helping him out. Hoo. Everything is going as I planned. All I have to do now is to find that demon and kill him. Then, I will take the scroll with me and my mission will be complete. The storm will be unstoppable. End Ost. 2 hours later, one really tired Uzumaki Naruto was sitting beneath a tree close to the old warehouse in the forest. He was panting heavily from all the strain, both physical and mental, of his training. But hey, he's done it. He finally managed to learn some fucking thing. And he was damn good at it, too. Maybe that thing he read within the scroll of seals about Uzumaki's having ridiculously huge chakra reserves was right after all. He still had some gas left. But before he could finish resting up, he felt something closing in. Before he could raise his head and see if there was someone nearby, he heard footsteps and a faint shadow forming in front of him. He gathered some of his remaining strength to look upwards and see Iruka, who seemed a bit tired and very, very pissed off. Hey, Naruto. Naruto simply had a sheepish grin planted on his face, and a hand scratching his back. He. I knew I could find you here, Iruka-sensei, he said. Iruka couldn't help but cast his ninpo, Daikito no Jutsu at the young boy. I was the one who found you, damn it. What do you think you are doing with this scroll anyway? The young Jinchuriki just blinked, a bit curious about Iruka's reaction. What? That's easy, sensei. I was training my ass off in here. Iruka raised his eyebrows, a bit surprised with Naruto's answer. He took a better look at him. Indeed, Naruto's clothes were all ragged, and he seemed awfully tired. He's been training here by himself, all this time, he thought. But there was still something off about it. What was he doing all the way here, anyways? Naruto, he said, drawing his attention. What are you doing with the scroll of seals anyway? And who told you of this place? The blonde knucklehead blinked again. What was the meaning of this? He knew that Iruka knew of the extra revaluation exam. Why bother asking? But he wasn't the friendly Jinchuriki of the neighborhood for no reason, so he answered simply and bluntly. Why, Mizuki-sensei, of course, Datbeo. He told me about everything. You know, the scroll, this place. And, of course, the extra revaluation exam so I couldn't fail the Genin Shiken. Iruka just stood there, trying to make sense of what Naruto told him. Why would Mizuki say something like that to poor, gullible Naruto? Did he try to take the scroll of seals for himself? Did he hope to drag Naruto in this mess to look as if he was innocent? Naruto, there's something I had to tell. Naruto asked. Nervous. Before Iruka finished talking, though, a volley of kunai flew towards them. Iruka was quick enough to shove Naruto away and receive all the damage. Despite the damages suffered, he looked upwards to check out the source of the attack. And there he was, Toji Mizuki, on top of a tree branch, carrying two Fuma shuriken on his back. So, that's what you were planning after all, said Iruka, removing a kunai stuck on his leg and wincing in pain doing do. Mizuki merely chuckled. Well, I am indeed surprised you found him before me, he said. But I'm quite in a hurry. That is why I have to ask you, Naruto, to hand over the scroll to me, pretty please. Naruto was shocked at the scenery he found himself into, with one sensei stuck on the wall, bleeding from all those wounds, while the attacker, which happened to be another sensei, asking bluntly and without hesitation for the scroll. Inosa. What the hell is going on here? He asked. Iruka, removing another kunai, kept glaring at his traitorous colleague as he addressed the young Jinchuriki. Naruto. No matter what happens, don't let him have this scroll. It contains techniques too dangerous for anyone to possess. Mizuki took advantage of you to try and get his hands on it. Naruto took a step back and glared at the traitor, who simply shrugged. Naruto, can't you see that Iruka is actually afraid of seeing you hanging around with the scroll? He asked. Just look at him. He's quivering in fear of you as we speak. Naruto gasped, as he turned around to face his sensei. Iruka couldn't believe at what Mizuki was trying to pull off. He really wanted to crush poor Naruto's head. Damn you, Mizuki. What do you think you're talking about? Naruto, please believe me, don't listen to what he's saying. Oh, he will listen to me, said Mizuki. Especially when I'm about to tell him something that is of his most concern. Naruto widened his eyes. What in the world was supposed to be of his concern? Iruka knew well what Mizuki was up to now. Shit, no, stop, it's forbidden. You know the story of the demon fox, don't you, Naruto? How the Yondaime killed it and saved Konoha and all. It's your favorite story, isn't it? But you see, that day, October 10th, a bit over 12 years ago, the villagers created a new law. A law? Asked a curious Naruto. This was something he didn't expect to hear all of a sudden. Yes, and this law forbade anyone to talk about the events that transpired that night, especially what concerns your direct involvement that specific night. You were forbidden to know the truth. Me? Wah, what the hell is this all about? What kind of law is that? Could it be about my parentage? He thought for a moment. No, it felt somehow different. But what the hell was all that about, really? Stop, Mizuki. Iruka's shout fell on deaf ears. Nothing would stop Mizuki from telling the truth now. Chuckle, a law that forbids people to say that the demon fox was never killed by the Yondaime, but rather sealed inside a baby born on that night. More specifically, was all that Naruto could say now. It wasn't that particular shocking news he expected, but oh well. What I'm trying to say is that you are the Kyuubi no Yuko that killed Iruka's parents and nearly razed our beloved village to the ground. Did you never stop to think about it? How the villagers blatantly cursed you, ignored you, looked at you with contempt. That's why. Naruto remembered all the suffering in his life for a moment. All of them, pointing at him, whispering things and calling him names that weren't his own. He finally knew why. He was finally aware of his condition, and yet there was something wrong. It was the Yondaime who did this to him. His own father. Why? It was probably the greatest question in his mind. Tears filled his eyes. Then Mizuki's voice roared loudly. Everyone here hates you. Even Iruka hates you as well. And now, I'll put you out of your misery, demon. Die, he shouted, throwing one of his Fuma shuriken straight at the young Jinchuriki. End Ost. Naruto only thought about getting the fuck out of Dodge now, but his legs betrayed him. He was desperately trying to run, but he just couldn't do it. That's when he heard Iruka's voice telling him to get down, which he immediately complied to, closing his eyes in terror. When he heard the sound of steel stabbing flesh, his eyes opened to see Iruka in front of him, shielding him from the Fuma shuriken. He coughed some blood, and a few drops fell on Naruto's face, who had the same question from before on the tip of his tongue. Why? Naruto asked. Sadness and sorrow. Because, we are the same. Iruka answered, panting heavily and wincing in pain from the large weapon impaled on his back. But the pain was nothing compared to how sorry he felt about his young student. When my parents died, I had to live by myself. My classmates' parents couldn't look out for me. I was all alone, and even the instructors didn't look out for me. So I resorted to pranks and goofiness, so I could have all the attention, even if I was the one being laughed at. It was painful, and I never felt so bad before in my life. Earlier this afternoon, after you failed the exam, Sandaime-sama called me to talk about you. He said that you are just like I was back then. No one at your side, no one to be proud of you, no one to say how much they loved you, people don't even call you by your name. So you resort to pranks and goofiness, just like I did, so you can draw people's attention, so they can see that you exist? Quote. Tears started to fall from Iruka's eyes. Some of them found their way towards Naruto's face, who was also on the verge of crying once again that night. It's so painful, isn't it, Naruto? It must be so much hard for you, sobbed, to be all by yourself, to suffer so much because of something beyond your control. I'm so sorry, sob, I'm truly sorry. If I had known how much the loneliness affected you, I might have done something earlier. I could have done more for you. I should have done more for you, sob, please forgive me. Naruto? Mizuki stood there, watching that poor scenery with an amusingly cold smile. Chuckle, oh, pull the other one. Surely you won't believe him, Naruto? Iruka hates you for killing his parents, and he's afraid of what you can do with the scroll of seals. Naruto looked at the two sensei. Iruka's pain was not fake by a long shot. And Mizuki's words were not true at all. His mind was racing with unanswered questions, negative feelings and lack of trust towards anything else. But he knew he could always trust Iruka. And to protect this one precious person, he did what he thought to be the best course of action. He ran, hoping that Mizuki would go after him and Iruka would be safe from more harm. Iruka could merely watch Naruto running for his life. Naruto. Naruto. He shouted, afraid of the worst-case scenario. Mizuki just chuckled as he jumped from the tree branch. Naruto is not one who changes his heart just like that. If I had to guess, he ran towards the village. He will use the power of the scroll of seals and get his revenge on Konoha. You saw those eyes, didn't you, Iruka? Those eyes, they're not human. The demon fox already took over. Chuckled terrific. Now I can kill him and become a hero myself, even greater than that stupid Yondaime. Iruka lifted himself up, and used some of his remaining strength to remove the Fuma shuriken from his back. Don't say such things about Yondaime-sama. And don't you dare to address Naruto that way anymore. He is not a demon, he shouted, throwing the shuriken towards Mizuki, who dodged it easily enough. Yon, oh well. The way you are right now, I don't even have to worry about killing you just yet. I still have to get that scroll, so I'll just kill Naruto first. Mizuki then jumped towards the trees to chase the young Jinchuriki. Iruka winced in pain, but he was ready to give chase to Mizuki. I won't let you touch him. End Ost. Meanwhile, in the Hokage's office, Sarutobi Hiruzen watched everything from his crystal ball. He saw how Naruto reacted to the news of his condition, and Iruka's actions to defend him. He sighed. He hoped things would have worked out better for Naruto. Oh well, no point crying over spilled milk now. Damned Mizuki, he thought. Now Naruto's head is filled with questions, rage, but most of all fear. I don't know much about what he can do with the scroll of seals, but he does have the power of the Kyuubi, even if the chances are 1 on a million of the seal breaking apart. But if he does break the seal, there won't be anything I can do but pray for all of us. Back at our friendly Jinchuriki of the neighborhood, he was hopping from tree to tree, when suddenly Iruka appeared at his side, jumping alongside him. Naruto, the sensei shouted. Everything that Mizuki said was a lie, you know it. He's after the scroll, and we can't let that happen. Hand it over to me. But in less than 2 seconds, Naruto suddenly jumped towards Iruka and punched him in the gut, sending him quite a few yards away, both of them landing on the ground. Naruto Ost. Bad situation. Iruka was panting heavily and groaning in pain. Damn it, that hurt. How did? He said, puffing in smoke and turning out to be Mizuki. How did you find out that I wasn't Iruka? He asked. Naruto chuckled and puffed in smoke as well, turning out to be Iruka. Does that answer your question, traitor? He asked. The other Chunin chuckled. So, you really are going to defend that chibi demon? That thing killed your parents, you know. You could use the scroll to do it. I'll let you have it for a few moments, he said. Iruka coughed some blood and gave Mizuki a cold glare. Even if I had to die, he answered. I won't let you have the scroll and hurt Naruto. Meanwhile, the Jinchuriki was behind a tree, holding the scroll in his hands and listening to everything. You're so dumb, Iruka. Mizuki said. Naruto and I are the same. Haven't you noticed yet? Iruka's eyes showed some confusion. Mizuki enlightened him. With the scroll, and his powers, Naruto would be able to do anything he ever wanted to. Think about it for a second, Iruka. You're supposed to be the brains here. The demon fox would definitely make use of the powers the scroll of seals has to offer. Iruka chuckled, despite the pain. You know, you were right. The demon fox would most certainly do that. Naruto's eyes widened. Did he just hear Iruka say that? Damn it, damn it, damn it all to hell. Not even Iruka, who was supposed to be his best friend in the whole wide world, acknowledged him as a normal person. Not a single person, he thought. Not even my sensei. No one recognizes me. He felt something dark slowly taking over his heart. But then Iruka said something that made his eyes widen again, and the dark feeling to go away. But only demon foxes do that, anyway. And Ost. Huh? Mizuki asked. Naruto isn't a demon fox, though. I know that. I always knew that. He's a dedicated student. And a very caring soul, always wanting to help and be recognized by his own efforts. Too bad he's clumsy, though. If only it weren't for that, maybe more people would acknowledge him. He already felt too much pain in his heart to know how it feels like, and how it sucks to see people sad and being unable to do something. His dream is to become Hokage, be acknowledged, and maybe then he can reach out those who feel pain like he does. He doesn't like to see people hurt, his pain is enough as it is. And let me tell you something, Mizuki. He is not a demon fox. Naruto Ost. Naruto main theme. He is Uzumaki Naruto from Konohamaru no Sato. Naruto, still hidden, cried tears of joy. Someone did acknowledge him, after all. Then, Mizuki's voice cut the mood. Faye, I was going for Naruto, first. But since you're a pain in the ass, I will kill you right now. He shouted, spinning his Fuma shuriken and going straight for Iruka. So this is the end, Iruka thought, when suddenly, a orange blur appeared in the air. When he took a better look, it was Naruto kicking Mizuki in the jaw. The large shuriken flew throughout the forest aimlessly and Mizuki ate dirt. Serves the fucker right. And Naruto? What are you doing here? Hide, you idiot. Mizuki groaned in pain once more. Damn you, Gaki. Naruto held a side of the scroll under his right hand, and his eyes said it all. He was pissed. No one hurt his precious people and get away with that. Don't you dare lay another finger on Iruka-sensei, he said, his blue eyes cold as ice from hell, emitting killing intent like nothing ever seen. Or I'll kill you. Mizuki quickly reacted. Faye, as some brainless stupid demon brat such as you would have a chance against me. I'll get rid of you with one blow. Naruto made the cross shape he trained his ass off for the last 2 damn hours. Yeah, you try that, Teme. I'll just make sure the pain comes back to you 1,000-fold. Mizuki was fumed in anger as it was, and that stupid kid just added fuel to the fire. He shouted once more, well then, give me your worst, Kyuubi Gaki. Well, it was his funeral. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Smoke erupted in the forest, and when it seeped away, boom, motherfucker. There, surrounding Iruka and Mizuki, stood 1,000 Narutos. And they were all physical copies, who could say dat bayo and kick Mizuki's ass. And the night was still ahead. Way ahead. Iruka couldn't find words to say how impressive his student looked right now. But then again, Naruto was already feeling as if he was the bee's knees. Seriously, though, making 1,000 Kage Bunshins? Hide yo, kids. Hide yo, wives. But first, he would have a word with Mizuki for pulling a fast one on him and Iruka. Next was Sandame Gigi for hiding both his parentage and the Kyuubi from him. Alrighty then, said a few Narutos. You told me to give my worst, said another bunch. Then one approached Mizuki, clenching his fists. And I'll gladly do it, Mizuki Teme. Said Teme, though, was already shaking his legs and about to take a leak. He was not looking forward to the end of the night. He did the best thing he could do right now. He shrieked, and many fists and kicks found the source of the noise and took care of it. End Ost. Around 1 hour later or so, there was, lying on the floor, a bleeding Mizuki, along a few broken teeth and a strange fluid coming from his lower parts. Naruto looked at the mess he's done with the traitor and scratching the back of his head, he simply gave Iruka a sheepish grin. Hehehehe. Not sure if I overdid it or if I went easy on him. What do you think, Iruka-sensei? Iruka smirked. Nah, I'm sure that your punishment is something Ibiki would do in a quiet interrogation and torture room, so you're cool with me. I'm just not sure you're still up to Enko's level of pain yet. Naruto just gave him a, I don't know who you're talking about, But I assume that's a nice comparison, look and shrug. As Naruto cleaned up the mess and picked the scroll so he could return it to the old Hokage, the good sensei looked at the young Jinchuriki, impressed at his accomplishment. You know, he just might surpass the previous Hokages indeed if he keeps going forward. Oh, right, I almost forgot. Hey, wait a moment Naruto. What is it, Iruka-sensei? The blonde boy asked, stopping mid-track. Iruka lifted himself up from the tree and walked towards him. Close your eyes, I have a gift for you. Meanwhile, close to the Hokage tower, the sun was almost rising far on the horizon as many Chunin and Junin assigned to find Uzumaki Naruto were gathered and very worried about the results of the hunt. Did anyone find him? Do you think he ran away from Konoha? And, how about we try looking over again? Were many of the murmurs that could be heard in the vicinity. Hiruzen's voice came from the tower's door. You don't have to worry anymore. The shinobi gathered all turned around to look at their leader, curiosity in their faces. Hokage-sama, Sarutobi Hiruzen simply puffed some smoke from his pipe. He's coming back at the forest. Sensei, are you done yet? Asked Naruto. Hold on, he answered. Just a little more. AAANNNDD, done. Alright, you can open your eyes now. Naruto unreleased Ost. Naruto main theme slow version, YouTube is your friend here. Naruto opened his eyes to see Iruka without his hiteate, smiling and holding the blonde's goggles in his left hand. In this moment, the clouds were gone, giving space for the sun to shine deep down in the forest. The reflection of the sunlight was strong and Naruto simply heard Iruka say, Congratulations, you graduated. Welcome to the shinobi ranks, Uzumaki Naruto. Genin of Konohamaru no Sato. Naruto touched his forehead, and to his surprise, he indeed felt the cold steel of Iruka's hiteate. His mouth gaped like a fish, and his eyes slowly filled themselves with water. Yosh! Iruka shouted. Now how about we celebrate your graduation with some Ichiraku's ramen, But before he could say anything else, he felt something heavy pushing him to the ground. It was Naruto who in his state of bliss, jumped and embraced the one person in the whole village aside from the old Sarutobi and the Ichiraku family who acknowledged him. Iruka-sensei. The young Jinchuriki yelled, tears of joy running down his face. Iruka stood there, sat on the ground, comforting his surrogate Otuto with a smile on his face. Naruto, he thought, the life of a shinobi is a hard one. Well, I'll go over in more details once we go get your ramen. Alrighty then, young boy. Let's not forget to return the scroll of seals to Hokage-sama. You're still in a heap of trouble, you hear me? He said in an authoritative tone. Grown fine, answered Naruto. As he picked up the scroll on the ground, he remembered the contents of that special comments section of the Kage Bunshin, more specifically regarding his Uzumaki heritage, and also his bond with the Yondaime. He also had in his mind what Mizuki said about the Kyuubi. Was it really sealed inside him? Sandaime Jiji had a lot to answer him for, but he still had one predominant thought in his mind. Tu-chan, I'm gonna be a Hokage even better than you were. Ka-chan, I'm gonna be even stronger than you were. I'm gonna make both of you proud, or else my name isn't Uzumaki Naruto, Datbeo. Or is it, Namikaze? Uzumaki Naruto and Amino Iruka stood in front of the old Sandaime Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen. Naruto had on his back the scroll he stole from the old man's office, and he was sweating like a pig. Jiji was like the best old man in the world. A real grandfather figure. But he was the freaking Hokage. That meant something, and in Naruto's case it meant a heavy scolding and many fair warnings about choosing the right people to trust, or something like that. Which he realized it would last forever. Kami dammit, he haven't slept in 25 hours. He woke up too early yesterday because he was too excited for the Genin Shiken, and he's been awake ever since. I understand you didn't have a proper education, and the village wasn't nice to you, but you should. Were some of Hiruzen's words from his long lecture, falling on deaf ears to everyone inside. Within Naruto's mind, the only thought he had was, long grown just shut up already. Iruka noticed how bored the young Jinchuriki was. Heck, he was bored as hell too. Sarutobi, at the prime of his patience and understanding, noticed the bored people and motioned Iruka to speak. Hokage-sama, he said, yawning. I think that Naruto had quite enough for today. He had a terrible day at the academy, He was tricked into stealing the scroll of seals, and he was finally told of his tenant. And my parentage, added Naruto. Hiruzen couldn't help but cough the smoke from his pipe in surprise to what he just heard. Either that, or he finally gave in to tuberculosis or lung cancer. No, wait, he didn't. He channeled chakra on his throat constantly to avoid the damages from the tobacco. Old bastard. Now, Naruto, where in the world have you learned about? Special comments section. Naruto said, cutting off the old Hokage. Said Hokage facepalmed himself. He never expected that Minato would somehow use the scroll of seals as if it was your everyday journey log. It made sense, though. Who in the world would actually read it, other than people which he trusted and knew about the darkest secrets of the village? Reckless, but still clever, in a way. Hiruzen extended his hand, and Naruto quickly understood that he actually wanted to see the contents which Naruto mentioned. He skimmed through the scroll and got to Minato's statement. When he actually saw Minato ordering Naruto to avoid repeating his mistakes and stop saying databane or its variants, he burst in laughter. Naruto snickered in amusement. I know, right? He said. Somehow, 2-chan was absolutely positive that I would pull this off. Creepy, if you ask me. Hiruzen chuckled to Naruto's remark. Iruka stood there, unsure of what to say. Naruto, when you say 2-chan, who are you referring to, if it doesn't kill to ask? Naruto actually didn't know what to say. He looked towards Hiruzen, who shrugged. Well, it actually does kill to say it aloud. But I trust you, and I'm sure Naruto also trusts you to keep the secret, so. We were both referring to Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage. He is Naruto's father. Iruka's reaction was a fish mouth agape. Hiruzen and Naruto glanced towards the fish, then at each other, and back at the fish. They scoffed a bit before laughing again. Iruka facepalmed himself. I've been looking at that face for 12 years and I never even considered the slightest possibility that you were related to him. I'm so stupid. Naruto and Hiruzen chuckled with Iruka's remark. Suddenly, the blonde Jinchuriki stopped smiling and looked down on the floor. I still have one question, though, he said. If he was the one who sealed the Kyuubi in me, it means that he wasn't exactly nominated to the Dad of the Year award back then, right? Hiruzen sighed. It was a really delicate subject, to say the very least. He puffed some smoke from his pipe and looked at Naruto right in the eye. I'll be very clear, Naruto. Your father did not want to do this to you. But he had no choice. The Kyuubi was raising everything to the ground, and there was a lot going on back then. He didn't want Konoha to lose control of its Biju. He couldn't just sacrifice someone else's son. And even if he did, he had. No, he still has absolute faith that you will someday be able to become a capable Jinchuriki and use the power within you to protect Konoha. Because you are your father's son. And having unconditional faith in your children is a father's duty. Those were his words to me before he died. He wanted you to be recognized as the one true hero of Konohagakure. By keeping the Kyuubi imprisoned and becoming a loyal shinobi, you would become Konoha's savior. But people ignored your father's wish. A bit because of their lack of knowledge in Fuinjutsu, but mostly because they were blinded by hatred, fear and angst. You had no idea just how terrible that night was for all of us. That's why they resent towards you so much. But please, understand that it's not your fault. Your father really loved you and trusted in you to do the right thing, for the sake of Konoha. Naruto Ost. Naruto main theme slow version, Naruto Shippuden Ost. Sengenbanba also works. Naruto had his eyes closed, listening to everything and organizing his thoughts. True enough, his father had indeed too many troubles to handle. But at the same time he rested all of his hopes within him. The Yondaime expected him, as his son, to do great things. He was expected to protect Konoha every day. And he would do it. He opened his eyes, looking back at Sarutobi. Then it's up to me to make it stop. Until yesterday, I just wanted to become Hokage so that people would recognize me. But now that I know the truth, it's not about simple recognition anymore. From now on, I have to prove people wrong. I'll show them that I'm not a monster. I'm a shinobi. I live to serve and protect the place I love and call home. And I'll honor my father's wish and become Konoha's hero. Hiruzen and Iruka looked at that young boy with a proud smile in both their faces. Those eyes. That look. It belonged to a true shinobi. Hiruzen didn't see eyes like this since the boy's father. It meant serious business. He puffed some smoke from his pipe, and gave Naruto a warm smile. Come back in 2 weeks to take the picture for your registration, then. Don't forget to wear something nice and fill this form I'm giving you. I have nothing else to say, except, welcome to the shinobi force, Uzumaki Naruto. He said, giving his surrogate grandson the registration form. You got it, Gigi. Naruto answered, with his foxy grin. His smile suddenly vanished and he tilted his head, as if he was curious. Inosa. Just a question. What about my Namikaze surname? That will wait until you become Junin, alright? Here is an answered. Get a bit stronger before being able to back up the name as you'll face your father's enemies. The Uzumaki name by itself is trouble enough as it is, and we don't want you getting into more troubles than you already do, okay? Sai okay, then. No Namikaze until Junin. Can I? Yan asterisk. Go home and sleep now? By all means, do it. You've earned your rest, Naruto. Come by as soon as you can, though. Minato left a few things for you, and it's about time you took a hold on them, since you're aware of your heritage now, even if it's not public knowledge yet. Naruto nodded. That was something he didn't want to miss. And so the young Jinchuriki made his way home. He's been awake for over 27 hours by now, and not even Kami would disturb him, now that he finally reached his comfy bed. By the next 24 hours, he would have to start dealing with lost inheritances, something to wear for the registration. Oh right, he wanted to put the Kage Bunshin to good use to train a lot and impress everyone at the team selection gathering. For once, things are going smooth, he thought, before slumber took his mind away. End Ost. Naruto. The Gutsiest of all tales. Chapter 2. Reopening old drawers. By the way, I'm Konohamaru, core. 24 hours later. Alrighty then. Said an enthusiastic Uzumaki Naruto, walking towards a mid-sized house in the East District. It was slightly close to the commercial district, but it was right across the street that led to the Akamichi and Aburame compounds, two of Konoha's 4 noble clans, alongside the Uchihas and the Hyugas, which were located in far and opposite sides of the village. They didn't get along very well. If you looked from the outside, there was a small iron fence, and the yard had a few paper tags stuck on the ground. So these are the Kekai seals Gigi was talking about. Naruto thought. Thank Kami I've never tried passing through this, or else I'd become miso meat. He reached his pouch and took a small blue scroll. He unwrapped it, showing 2 kanjis, Kagi and Chishio. Now, what was that again? Spill some blood in the Chishio part. He cut his finger with a kunai and let some blood spill from the wound. Now wrap the scroll around the gate. Focus some chakra. He formed a ram seal to mold a bit of chakra. AAANNNDD. Done. The gate is opening, which means I'm really his son and I'm getting some neat thingies. Nice, he thought, sliding the gate open and now heading to the door, which he opened easily enough. No fuinjutsu required. Road to Ninja Ost. Rainy day. Put the song on repeat mode, especially if you're a slow reader. Naruto looked at the dark hallway that stood between the front door and the living room. Many times he felt this void in his heart, whenever he came home with no one to greet him. This time it felt heavier. Probably because it's the house his parents have lived in, and the house he'd have lived in if they had survived 12 years ago. It was a new feeling, despite the homecoming sensation he had in his heart, as he opened the door to the living room. Tadaima. Asterisk, he said, hoping for anyone to answer, oh Carrie. It didn't matter if it was a whisper, the wind or even a ghost. He hoped to hear that soothing word sometime in his life. No one answered, though. Naruto looked at the empty living room. The lights were cut off, and the fact that no one entered this house for more than 12 years didn't contribute for the emptiness feeling Naruto had in his heart right now. For one small moment he hoped for a sign of life, but he couldn't find it. He walked slowly towards a few windows and opened them, to let the light enter the room and make his stroll through the house a bit easier. He noticed that the living room and the kitchen were mixed in one large room, separated by a thin wall, with no door. He figured that it would help in case of many visitors in a single afternoon. He walked towards the left hall, and on the first door there was a restroom. It even had a tag over the door. It wasn't exactly odd, but it did feel a bit weird to have a restroom right at the beginning of the hall. Maybe it was meant to be used by the visitors, while the other bedrooms had bathrooms of their own. He decided to close the restroom and look around the other 2 doors. The second door had a tag on top of it saying, "Private." On the doorknob a small kanji for Chishio could be seen. Must be Tu-chan's library, Naruto thought. Or maybe his office. Whatever it is, I'll check it out after I'm done with the other rooms. The third door had another tag, Naruto. He opened the door, and the sight of the room filled his eyes with water. It was a small room, fit for a baby. The cradle in the right side was quite beautiful. It was white, although it had a few small orange details. On the ceiling, a small planetarium, with shurikens for stars and kunais for comets. Naruto chuckled at the scenery, and imagined a baby version of himself playing with it. The walls and ceiling had this odd combination of blue, yellow, red and orange. It didn't hurt one's eyesight, it was just curious, also considering the white, orange cradle. Is this supposed to represent my parents and I somehow? Though, thinking back of their markings in the bingo book. It actually made sense. The toys spread around the room also made the room feel babyish. There was even a small orange fox plush doll. It looked a bit like the Kyuubi, although it didn't have 9 tails. They must have worked hard to find the proper toys for me to play with. Though, a small tear running down through his face, as well as a faint smile. He closed the door and made his way to the right hallway, which also had 3 doors, although they were located at the other side of the wall. The first room had another private tag with a Chishio kanji printed on the doorknob. Naruto would check on that later, like the other room. If the first private door was his father's office, this one probably lead to the library. He looked at the next room. The tag, Minato and Kushina, was visible. This is. Naruto didn't think twice. He opened the door and saw yet another heartbreaking scenery. A large queen-sized bed, with a small bed table on each side of it. On the top of the right one Naruto saw an odd-looking kunai. For anyone who saw it before, it was a sight for sore eyes. The tri-pronged kunai Minato used in conjunction for his own version of the Nidaim's Hiraishin no Jutsu, which granted him the Kiroi Senku name in the bingo book. There was also a simple-looking book. It didn't have any fancy cover like many others. It plainly had the title written on the front. Naruto picked it up. "Tales of a Gutsy Ninja," he whispered. It looked interesting. On the introduction page, it contained some information about the author. Jiraiya. He saw that name before. Oh, right. Special comments section of the scroll. Not that I paid much attention to his comment, anyway, he thought. On a page that was supposed to be blank, an autograph of sorts. To Namikaze Minato, my most cherished apprentice, and the one I believe to be the child of prophecy. May this book's story motivate you to follow the righteous path towards true peace. Jiraiya of the Sannin. Naruto was a bit impressed by this statement. Was his father supposed to save the world or something? Well, no one would know for certain now. Maybe if this Jiraiya guy that happens to be his teacher is still alive, he ought to know more about it. Maybe I'll read the book later as well, Naruto thought. He put it back at his dad's bed table, opened the drawer and saw nothing. He closed it and went towards the other one, which was from his mother Kushina. On top of the bed table there was a small picture frame. Naruto picked it up, and as he saw the contents, he couldn't hold his tears any longer. Minato had his right knee on the floor while his arms wrapped around Kushina's small back, and his head rest on her stomach, which clearly showed that she was at least 8 months pregnant. Naruto stood there, crying his heart out. For more than 12 years he's been alone. People glared at him, called him names, and he had to take it all in. After a while the insults didn't hurt as much. But what really hurt him more than anything were the small acts of fatherly affection that he saw once in a while. When he saw a kid getting treated, or hugged, or holding hands at the playground. It always reminded him of something he would never be able to have. Someone to take him to bed and tell a story. Someone to help him out with the lessons of the academy. Someone who made him breakfast and said, "I love you." Someone that answered, "Oh Carrie," whenever he got home and said, "Tadaima." After a few minutes sobbing and weeping, Naruto took slow and deep breaths. He finally found out about his heritage, his status as Jinchuriki and his role as Konohagakure's protector. From now on, he had to be twice as strong as he managed to be over the years. Crying over what's history won't solve anything, he thought. I learned this the worst way a while ago, anyway. Today is a new day, and tomorrow will be even newer. I will honor my parents' legacy. Now, which of those 2 rooms is the library, I wonder? And so, the young Jinchuriki recomposed himself and took the first great step towards his dream to become Hokage. But this time, doing it the right way. End Ost. Admit it, you teared up a bit. Hokage's office, 10 days later. Sarutobi Hiruzen was now examining the picture taken by the young Uzumaki Naruto, alongside his shinobi registration and overall characteristics he put on the form. Shinobi Idaho 102607, Uzumaki Naruto. Birthday October 10th, currently 12 years old. My hobbies include training and pranking. Miso ramen from Ichiraku's is the food of the gods. My most precious belongings are Gama-chan. The goggles I got as a birthday gift from an anonymous source and a torn page from the holy book of the log just for the laughs. The picture? Well, it wasn't Naruto-ish. The Uzumaki Naruto from 2 weeks ago would have probably put some random kabuki war paint to look intimidating and idiotic at the same time. Mostly the latter. But true to his family roots, he was an unpredictable little guy. There he was, with a blue one-piece vest, much alike the standard Junin vest, and over it a black jacket with orange details on the extremes and the inside. He also wore black pants with orange side stripes, as well as a pair of black fingerless gloves, with red details on the palms. His blue shinobi sandals were also a part of the new set. And to complete it, the usual Uzumaki red swirl on the back of both the jacket and the vest. Although you couldn't see it, but it was there anyway, and a white version of the swirl knitted just under the left shoulder. Of course, you only saw half of it on the photograph. The rest of it, well, actually him in one piece, not just the other half, was sitting right in front of Sarutobi, with that, now what, look on his face. The old Hokage allowed himself a warm smile. Maybe it was a good idea to let him get his parents' inheritances. If he knew that Naruto would mature so much in the course of 2 weeks, he should have tried it earlier. Oh well, crying over spilled milk was not an option anymore. Well, said Hiruzen, I expected some old-school prank from you this time around, Naruto. But oh well, it helps having a decent registration, so good job on that one. Now, where's your Hiteate? I'm saving it for the gathering, Datebao. Naruto answered. Besides, that one belonged to Iruka-sensei, so I gave it back to him. I found an old one back at the big house, and I polished it a bit. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. He remembered Minato having his Hiteate on when he died that night. Chances are that the Hiteate Naruto polished must have belonged to Kushina. Well, it was a good thing. Suddenly, a faint sound of metal could be heard. Before anyone had the time to react, someone came in. It was a small boy, probably around 9 or 10 years old, wearing a yellow t-shirt, grayish-green shorts and an odd piece of headgear that combed his brown hair like a Nara's pineapple haircut. The most noticeable trait was the large blue scarf wrapped around him. It was twice his height, for Kami Almighty. Not even Vincent Valentine had a scarf this large, and we're talking about Vincent fucking Valentine here, just so you know. Naruto Ost. Strong and strike. Gigi. Fight me, core. The bout shouted, rushing towards the old Hokage, with a shuriken in his hand. Tremble before the future Godaime Hokage, Konohamaru-sama. Abrupt Ost cut. Before the young brat could say anything further, he tripped on his own large scarf. Serves him right. Seriously, who bought him that thing? It was almost as bad as Naruto's jumpsuit, and Naruto could actually sneak around wearing that. This boy, though. Itai. The brat whined. Naruto looked at him, his face deadpan, although he was mentally erupting in laughter. Hiruzen just adjusted his hat and emitting a bored sigh. Will he ever quit? He thought. Before could anyone said anything else, the brat groaned again. Who put a trap on the way, core? He asked. A tall and skinny Junin with the headband wrapped around the head, and wearing aburame-like sunglasses came in, startled. Dear me, are you alright, Omago-sama? I've checked the vicinity, and no traps have been found, he shouted, obviously worried about the brat. Although as he took a better look at the room, his eyes stumbled upon another brat, who was wondering who the hell were those weirdos. The Junin looked a bit off. That is his thought. The Kyuubi Gaki, the loser I hate the most. Naruto Ost. Fooling mode. The little punk started walking towards Naruto, with that, I own this shit, walk, pointing his finger at his face. Before Naruto could say anything, Konohamaru beat him to it. You You were the one who put a trap on my way, didn't you, Core? Okay, now he's done it. Naruto popped a vein from his forehead out of the building anger and grabbed that Naru ripoff by the scarf. You little Teme, you fell your ass off by tripping in your own damned scarf. The tall Junin grimaced at the terrifying things the Kyuubi Gaki would do to Konohamaru, so he stepped in. Release him at once, you grunt. Don't you realize you are holding the Hokage's very own grandson? He shouted. Naruto rose an eyebrow. This was supposed to be Gigi's blood-related grandson? Man, it sure didn't look like. Okay, maybe the lines close to the eyes, and the brown hair, and the stamina of a monkey with its ass on fire. Oh what the hell, he was a proper bona fide Sarutobi, alright. Said Sarutobi looked at the Jinchuriki who was this close to whacking him in the head. Fei. He stopped dead on his tracks, just like Ebisu-sensei and everyone else. Loser, he thought, before voicing his newfound superiority towards Naruto. What's the matter, Core? Got scared of beating the Hokage's grandson and facing the consequences? You better. I wouldn't give a Kyuubi's ass if he was your grandmother. Baka, Naruto yelled, giving Konohagakure a well-deserved fist on the top of his head. The young Sarutobi yelped in pain. This guy is different from the others, he thought, before going out cold. Ebisu stood there, absolutely frozen in disbelief. Someone actually knocked the Hokage's grandson out cold. What? He yelled. The old Hokage just sighed and shook his head. This was turning out to be a hell of a long day. Damned Uzumaki and his tendency of bringing chaos wherever he went. What were Minato and Kushina thinking, giving their son a name that was synonymous to Maelstrom? That was ensured chaos, for heaven's sake. And he just had to have the mother's personality and the father's looks as well. Oh well. Sarutobi just looked as Naruto went his way. Meanwhile, Konohamaru got up, groaning in pain and annoyance. Ebisu approached him. Omago-sama, I advise you to not associate with that scum. He said, he will just hinder you. You do want to be Godem Hokage, right? Ebisu took a quick pause to adjust his sunglasses and smirk a bit. Then do not worry. For I, Toka Betsu Junin and elite instructor Ebisu, will show you the quickest way to reach your goal. Sheesh, the guy was nearly Uchiha-like arrogant. Even Konohamaru knew that. If you're wondering how one would know that, well, for starters, Konohamaru was already gone for quite a while. It took a few seconds for Ebisu to actually notice that and once again go full despair mode. He's gone again? He seems to have gone after Naruto, said Hiruzen, a bit bored. Ebisu just shouted, what? Before going out, screaming in desperation, Omagyo-sama, in hope of finding Konohamaru before he found Naruto. Hiruzen leaned back on his chair, a bit tired of all the action, despite being still early. Yar. That was the 20th attack just today, he thought, and now he's after Naruto. I hope nothing stupid comes from those two hanging around together. End Ost. Meanwhile, on the streets of Konohagakure, Naruto was walking towards one of the deserted training fields on the outskirts of the village. Ever since he packed up his belongings to move into his parents' house, he had a more thorough look on the two rooms he didn't visit so far. There was one room that he forgot to look on that day. It had no tag over the door, and the room itself was empty. Naruto decided to make it his personal bedroom. The other one was just too small for him, and he felt like leaving that room untouched, as a bittersweet reminder that his parents wanted him to be a happy child. The other bedroom belonged to his parents, and he wanted to keep that way as well. Besides, the deposit had a small space that could be used as a bathroom, so it helped. The private room on the left hall was an experiment room of sorts. It had a small circular ring on the middle of the room and two large tables that filled one of the walls, and many papers on them, containing some sort of information regarding powerful ninjutsu. Naruto decided to leave the room untouched for quite a while. It would be better if he came back more experienced and prepared to face whatever his parents were preparing themselves to face dead on. He wanted to live a bit longer. The locked room on the right hall was the library. It contained a relatively high number of scrolls, papers and many more useful tools for a shinobi. The most overwhelming aspect was the absurd quantity of paper tags and ink. But then again, Kushina was an Uzumaki and Minato was a quick learner. Aside from all of that paper, there were several Futon and Suiten scrolls, as well as a few non-elemental ninjutsu. There were 2 boxes containing weapons, including Minato's Hiraishin kunais. Well, at least Naruto wouldn't be spending money with weapons for a while. Through the last few days, Naruto spent most of his time summoning unheard amounts of cage bunchins to read through most of the contents and to put them to practice. He thought about it and it hit him. Aside from his stealth skills and creativity to pull off pranks and traps, his general skills, well, they sucked. He decided to go over the academy curriculum again, just to reshape his general knowledge of stuff. He owed Tobirama his deepest gratitude for creating this awesome jutsu. It certainly helped a lot. Yeah, your brain would mostly fry because of the overwhelming amount of information coming at once, but he was an Uzumaki. No worries there. Hiruzen also helped out. Thanks to his position as Hokage, he could pull a few strings here and there to make Naruto's new house up and running again. Which would mean that it now had water and electricity again. Yay! But even with all of those great things going on, Naruto was still a little pissed off. Especially because of one small pebble on his way. Well, not a small pebble, actually. A rock. A huge square rock. With eyes. Creepy as fuck. After walking a bit more, it wasn't a rock anymore. It was a wooden wall. With the logs on horizontal leaning. Okay, enough of that shit. Will you stop following me already? You didn't even get the disguise right, you pipsqueak, he shouted at the wall, which started laughing maniacally. I see. You really are as skilled as they say, said Konohamaru as he put the disguise away. Naruto asked. Konohamaru's theme. He walked towards the young Jinchuriki. First you had my curiosity, now you have my attention. And that is why I decided that you are gonna be my sensei, core. Right now, if a needle fell on the ground, you could probably hear it. Or maybe not, the streets of Konoha are known to be quite noisy. The wind also blows quite often. Maybe it's to create cool scenarios where 2 guys look at each other from a distance and the wind does that magic thing with the hair. But we're going off schedule enough as it is. Naruto looked at that noisy brat, his face deadpan. Why? Naruto asked. If he's gonna teach that pipsqueak, there's gotta be a hell of a good reason to do it, right? Konohamaru answered simply and bluntly. I heard Gigi grumble something about you defeating him with a devastating henge. So if you know how to defeat Gigi, I want to learn it, core. Naruto stopped for a while to think over. Now, when did that happen? Oh right, the Oiroke no Jutsu. Well, it certainly was a one-hit KO for an old pervert like Hiruzen. But he wouldn't teach that to a 9-year-old that just happens to be the Hokage's grandson. That would bring him trouble. So he made his decision. No. Konohamaru quickly responded. Please, please, please. I'll do anything, Oyabun, asterisk. Okay, that made Naruto's ear perk up a little. After hearing Konohamaru shouting, Oyabun, a few more times, he felt a bit sheepish. Okay, you leave me no choice, then. Come on, I'll teach you. Let's head over to Training Ground 17, I have some work to do there anyway, he said, as he started walking. Konohamaru was quick to obey him and follow. End Ost. Meanwhile, somewhere around the Hokage monument, Ebisu is not exactly the finest example of human being. He is arrogant and a bit of a hypocrite as well. But in no way he's a weakling. He might not have the brawls, but he has the brains. And for shinobis, that is by far the deadliest weapon you can have. And right now, his mind was simulating many ways to torture Naruto for being a bad influence for Konohamaru, in his convict opinion. I am Ebisu, the elite instructor of Konohagakure no Sato, and I personally taught many people who had the potential of being worthy of the title of Hokage, he thought. And I'll be damned if that virus of a boy ends up compromising Omago-sama's performance and future. Hokage-sama's favorite or not, I will remind him of his place in the world. And so, he vanished in a quick Shunshin no Jutsu, determined to find both boys. Training Ground 17, 90 minutes later. See, I knew you could do it. Not so hard after all. Asked Naruto, seeing a panting Konohamaru on the ground, who spent nearly all of his chakra trying to perform a perfect henge no jutsu, and by extension the oiroke as well. It merely required a few, let's say, models of inspiration. Naruto's army of cage bunchin helped a lot, by transforming themselves in many different people, and mostly women. Really pretty women. Really pretty women with minimal amounts of clothing. It actually helped the original to learn something else. The fun part of the Oiroke no Jutsu was not all about getting naked. The expectation was almost as good as the final package, so getting the picture of a woman as she slowly stripped down. Oh, that would knock down anyone with a perverted mind. Even the sturdiest ones would fall. Naruto had just mastered his one, only and deadly arrow ninjutsu. Maybe teaching the young Sarutobi was a good idea after all. Speaking of Konohamaru, he looked like shit. So Naruto decided to carry him to a small snacks stand, so they could have a lunch break and regain their strength. So, I'm curious about something, said Naruto, as they sat on a log to stuff their stomachs. Why do you want to become Hokage so badly anyway? Konohamaru flinched a bit with Naruto's questioning. But he knew that Naruto wouldn't be one to judge so harshly, so he answered truthfully. Oji-chan was the one who named me Konohamaru, both as an honoring to Konoha and for good luck. But even with this name, even when it's so easy to say it, people never do. They only call me Omago-sama, like you saw earlier with Ebisu-sensei. They don't see me for who I am. They only see the Hokage's grandson, and nothing else. And it pisses me off, because it's almost like I'm no one. So that is why I'm after the title of Hokage. That way, they'll have to recognize me, and not Oji-chan. Naruto listened to everything with a ghost of a smirk. In a way, he thought, I used to be like him just a couple of weeks ago. That made him think a bit more. True enough, people only saw the Kyuubi, and not him. But what would happen if they knew that he was the son of the Yondaime? Probably the same thing that happens now, only backwards maybe. People would see the Yondaime, but not him. But oh well. In the end, it's their fault for being too short-sighted. Faye. As if anyone would recognize a gaki like you, he said, making Konohamaru jump from the log they were sitting and clench his fists. If you want to become Hokage so badly, there's only one way to do it. Konohamaru's ear perked up a bit. He definitely wanted to hear that. Show me the way, Core. What do I have to do to become Hokage? Naruto gave him a huge smirk. One that belonged not to a foxy boy, but to a full-fledged shinobi. You had to beat me in a fight first, Dabbao. What? You think that Naruto would let anyone steal his spot? As if. Meanwhile, at the Hokage Tower, Sarutobi Hiruzen had his gaze fixed on the stone face of his successor, and sadly predecessor as well. Minato was a brilliant man. More determined, capable and competent than he could have ever possibly imagined. He had projects to restore the lost strength of the academy curriculum, avert the increasing power of the civilian council over shinobi matters, start the medical program that his student Tsunade has been asking for years. The guy was a godsend, a true legend among leaders. He was right there with his sensei Senju Tobirama as far as tightening up the pace and reminding everyone that Konoha is strong because of the union of its people through the Hai no Ishi. If only he had lasted 3 or 4 years, Konohagakure wouldn't be in the delicate situation as it has been over the last few years. Yeah, the economy was great. But the system was too corrupt and he was too old to fight it by himself. But he barely had time to think over these matters anymore, as Iruka came by to talk to him about a certain matter. Sandame-sama, the scarred Chunin said. Did Naruto come by to register himself? Yes, Hiruzen answered. I could barely recognize him, though. New clothes and attitude. Having the long-awaited knowledge of his condition and responsibility towards Konohagakure has certainly made a fantastic impression over him. Indeed, responded Iruka. That and my little motivational speech at Ichiraku's a few days ago. After I left the hospital, I took him there and explained to him about how he should behave now that he is a shinobi. And to make things better, Tuchi-san and Ayame-san told him a few stories about his parents. He swore in front of us that he would honor their legacy and become the best Hokage ever. It was heartwarming, in a way. Naruto asked. Sadness and sorrow. Hiruzen never took his gaze away from the Yondaime. Almost as if he hoped Minato's stone face to smile at seeing how his son was doing fine now. But he knew better than most. Naruto's dream, he said. Become Hokage. This dream might be much harder to come true than Naruto could ever imagine. Iruka rose his eyebrows at hearing Sarutobi's words. Before he could ask him what did he mean, Hiruzen beat him to it. Iruka, as you probably know, the only one who know the truth about Naruto being a Jinchuriki are those who fought against the Kyuubi that night and the shinobi from Chunin rank and above, as well as the adult parcel of the civilians. And I've been very explicit about not revealing it, or even mentioning in public, under capital punishment which I personally carry out. The children, Iruka, they are Naruto's salvation. They don't know about his condition, and I make sure of explaining carefully and thoughtfully about Naruto when someone of the younger generation is allowed to know of these things. But I never expected that things would go so wrong for Naruto because of the adults. They see him as if he was the Kyuubi itself. And they carry that fear, anger and hatred so deeply that it ends up being passed on to the younger people without they even thinking about it. It's automatic. The one hope for Naruto to have a normal childhood is wasted because of those who carry the hatred on. Hokage-sama, if I may, said Iruka. I'm not sure if it's because I understand things better now, but did it never cross your mind that the minute Yondaime-sama turned Naruto into a Jinchuriki, any attempts of a relatively normal childhood were downright futile from that point on? Hiruzen looked at Iruka with a curious glance. True enough, he never thought about it. Maybe the fact that he always treated Naruto like a normal child made him think that everyone else could, and should, do the same. Maybe Danzo was right all those years ago. Naruto's life would have probably been better if he didn't have to worry about being hated if he could be of service to Konoha with the power only a Jinchuriki would be able to provide. By following the Hai no Ishi, that is. Hiruzen would never let the son of the Yondaime being turned into one of Danzo's mindless drones. Minato would come back from the Shinigami's stomach to kill him, and maybe destroy Konoha while he was at it, if that ever happened. I think you are right, Iruka, he said, turning back to face Minato's stone face. I never thought about it. You're right, Naruto could never had a normal childhood. By the way, did you know? He asked, making the Chunin answer with a simple, "eh?" Sarutobi took a deep breath. Did you know that? When someone hates you and completely refuses to acknowledge your existence, that person's eyes become disturbingly cold? Iruka couldn't answer. He might have looked at Naruto with contempt in the beginning, but he never gave him a look of abhorrence as the one the old Hokage described. He could only wonder who, or rather, how many people gave Naruto that look every day, and how the hell he overcame them. End Ost. Back at Naruto and Konohamaru. I found you too, at last, shouted a voice behind Naruto and Konohamaru. It was Ebisu, who seemed really pissed. But then again, anyone who's been on the hunt for nearly 2 hours at the pace Ebisu was would be pissed off too. The guy wasn't breaking a sweat, but he did seem pretty anxious. Damn demon fox, he thought, giving Naruto the shuddering glare worthy of the ninth circle of hell given its coldness. Naruto flinched a bit with that look. Even after years of receiving those glares, it was still a pain in the ass to receive them. Shinobi glares are something else, he thought. They mix the glare with their killing intent, and that makes even me shiver. So, let's go back home, Omago-sama, said Ebisu. Konohamaru quickly responded, no way, I'm staying here, training hard to knock down Gigi and become Hokage. Stay out of my way, Core. Ebisu chuckled. How the hell was hanging out with the demon improve his skills, seriously? Please, Omago-sama, you should be aware of what it takes to be a Hokage. It takes years of practice to get the basic skills down. Your grandfather, for instance, knows more than 1,000 jutsus, and you can merely wonder how much time it took him to learn and master all of them. I won't say it again, Omago-sama. Let us return home, so I. Henge, Konohamaru shouted, forming the ram seal. Easily enough, the transformation was perfect. And the woman was really hot. Take that, Core. Oiroke no jutsu. Ebisu screamed on agony. But for some kami-forsaken reason, he didn't pass out from nosebleed. Maybe it didn't work. WWWW. What sort of rubbish is this? He yelled, his cheeks bright red from embarrassment, and a whole new lever of anger. I am a gentleman, Omago-sama. For all that it's worth, such low-level jutsu would never work against my being. He quickly approached Konohamaru and grabbed his scarf, dead set on dragging him if at all necessary to keep him away from Naruto. What did I tell you before, huh? Keep walking with that scum and you'll only compromise your future. You have to listen to what I say, for I will show you how to become Hokage. It's the quickest way, do you hear me? Naruto Ost. The raising fighting spirit. Naruto kept listening to that guy long enough. That man was clearly a hypocrite, arrogant snob, who refused to acknowledge both Konohamaru's talent to learn quickly and Naruto's skill as a teacher. This guy would catch holy hell. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Ebisu and Konohamaru quickly stopped fighting to see Naruto's performance. Easily enough, the Uzumaki was able to produce nearly 40 clones in one go. And it wasn't even the Taiju version, which meant that it was way too far from grasping the true measure of Naruto's chakra level. Damn, if chakra could be measured as light bulbs, Naruto easily had the energy of one, maybe two suns. Woo! Incredible, core, Konohamaru shouted. He only saw the cage bunshin being worked on, not actually being cast. So seeing all those physical clones being produced as if it was a normal bunshin, it was just, wow. Ebisu simply snorted. Fool, I'm an elite instructor. Mizuki might have been easy for you to handle, but I'm far superior. Prepare yourself, he said, walking towards the gathering clones. Meanwhile, Hiruzen was watching Naruto fighting Ebisu through his crystal ball. Now then. What will you do, Naruto? As soon as Ebisu was starting to make his first move, Naruto beat him to it. Both the original and the entire clone brigade performed a henge. Simple enough, right? Except for one thing. Abrupt Ost cut. Now playing Naruto Ost, Inus. Every single Naruto was now Naruko, the Oiroke girl, and a whole bunch of them. And they all jumped towards Ebisu, grabbing him by every angle available. And they all moaned his name in quite a sensual way. Ebisu-sama, what would you want us to do? Ebisu-sama, you're so handsome and manly. And quite a few other phrases were spoken by the enormous wave of blonde goddesses that were clinging on him. Ebisu couldn't hold on much longer. Being the hypocrite that he is, his gentleman attitude gave in space for his true nature within. The nature of a pervert. A closet pervert, but a pervert nonetheless. Being surrounded by all of those females, he did the only thing any decent manly man with testosterone and some fair sense of awareness of his surroundings would do. Fly towards the sky and land flat on the ground due to massive nosebleed. Seriously, who could imagine that people would bleed so much from such small holes? Cases like this one are to show people that they should never underestimate the human anatomy. It truly is a surprising one. Naruto dispelled all the cage bunchins and grinned at seeing Ebisu knocked out cold. How is that, huh? I call it harem no jutsu, Datbeo, he said. Sarutobi Hiruzen, who was watching everything from that crystal ball of his, could only sigh. He mixed the cage bunshin and the Oiroke no jutsu to create this. It seems that Naruto still has his devilishly prankster nature within, he thought. To create yet another stupid technique like that, you can count on that boy. Although I do admit that I would fall easily for it. End Ost. Grown, I can't even beat my instructor, how the heck am I supposed to beat Gigi? Asked Konohamaru, upset with the fact that his Oiroke no jutsu was not even close to Naruto's. Just what am I doing wrong? How in the world will I have the recognition I so crave for? I'm sick of being Omago-sama, core. Hey, said Naruto, trying to calm down the young boy. Wake up and smell the coffee for a moment. You're talking about the title of Hokage. Only the strongest, wisest and most capable shinobi in the village should carry that title, and for a damn good reason. You know, I faced many hardships during my short life. And the worst of all? Being an orphan gave me a reduced number of people to count on, so I had to work my ass off and go through hell and back to get one person to acknowledge me. So you can only wonder how hard you're gonna have to work your way if you hope to become Hokage and drop off the whole Omago-sama thingy. So let me tell you one thing I learned a while ago. It's the best piece of advice I can give you. Naruto Ost. Morning. The wind started to blow hard. That cool afternoon scenery with the main hero having his hair blown by the nice wind was taking place, and Naruto wanted to enjoy every single second of it. He turned around to face Konohamaru and gave him his foxy grin with his eyes closed. The path to become Hokage has no shortcuts at all. Konohamaru stood there, slowly absorbing the piece of advice given by the blonde Jinchuriki that spent the whole afternoon with him. He remembered the words he said not too long ago. If you want to become Hokage so badly, you have to beat me in a fight first, Datbeo. Those words, he wasn't kidding. Naruto could probably go as far as killing people to make his dream come true. Such is a shinobi's life. Konohamaru made his decision. Faye. Who are you to give me advices like Gigi does, core? He said, turning his back on Naruto, whose face was deadpan. You know what? I've had it, core. You're no longer Oyabun. From now on. Konohamaru turned around again to face the blonde. We're rivals. Both young boys smiled at each other. Man rule number 23, Second paragraph. Rival means bro. Naruto had to admit, he liked Konohamaru's attitude. He reckoned that he earned his respect today. The boy would grow up to become a strong shinobi in the future, that was certain. Well, it was time to close off the day. Well, sorry to say this, but I'm done for today. Next Monday I'm starting my career as a shinobi of Konoha. And it might take quite a while for us to fight for the title of Hokage, considering that we're both way too young for that. I can promise you one thing, though. I'm looking forward to when that day comes. Konohamaru. The young Sarutobi simply stood there, shocked by what he just heard. Someone finally called him by his name. His true name. It was the first sign of honest acknowledgement and recognition he received in his short life. His smile and the tiny bits of water filling his eyes couldn't even begin to describe how happy he truly was right now as he saluted Naruto, who was walking away waving, "So long," to him. Sarutobi Hiruzen, the old Sandame, looked through everything. He was happy to see his grandson starting to mature thanks to Naruto's nice and strong words. The boy was truly Minato's son. A promising shinobi. And Konoha's savior, from both the Kyuubi and from the village itself. Naruto, he thought, as the image of the crystal ball faded away. Your adventures as a shinobi are just at the very beginning. I'm looking forward to what the future will bring forth to you. A smile ran across the old man's face, as he wished for Naruto the very best life could give him. Just like the book written by his old student Jiraiya, he hoped Naruto would be even braver and stronger than the one from the story. The gutsiest of all tales is finally about to begin. That's all for my now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.